Our nuclear revenge. You slept with my GF. Better watch your back. TLDR at bottom. Full disclosure, this isn't my story. It happened to a friend of mine who lives in USA a long time ago, so dialogue isn't exact. He gave me permission to post it on Reddit. For ease of writing, I'll write it as if it happened to me. Due to the nature of the story, some details have been changed. Cost me friend. Karen me's GF had a drug addiction but was clean for 2 years, important for later. Jill business owner. Jake old friend, a-hole of the story. I live with my GF Karen and my old grade school friend Jake, who was working as a sales rep. We live on the outskirts of a well-known city in the States. I was in my late 20s. I found myself looking for work as a bar I was working at closed down. Knowing I was desperate for work, Jake calls me and tells me his new GF Jill just purchased a motel bar with a small kitchen and she is after hired help. Needless to say, I jump at the opportunity as Karen wasn't working. The bills were piling up and out health insurance was due. I called Jill, arranged to meet her at her new property to introduce myself. Jake made the introductions in person and had already told Jill I was hands-on DIY person with hospitality experience. Now to explain, my dad is a Sparky and believes if you can pay someone to fix something, you could probably do it cheaper yourself. He taught me lots and still does to this day. After a 30-minute chat, Jill tested me with a few odd jobs like rewiring an outlet, fixing a clogged sink, and quizzed me on liquor laws. Needless to say, I was hired that day. Originally, work was all about getting the property ready for business. Jill thought it would have been minor works, paint, replacement of fixings and furniture. We soon found out the electrical wires were short. The whole place needed rewiring, which was a cause of stress for Jill as it would have blown her budget. Lucky for Jill, my dad was between contracts and offered his services using leftover stock, already paid for from other jobs. Jill would need to cover the cost of any new product required. As for labor, his payment, he said he enjoys a steak and beer on Friday nights. After 3 weeks of helping Dad, the wiring was done, was up to code and at a fraction of the cost. Jill and I spent 1-2 months painting all 15 motel rooms, bistro, bar, cleaning the kitchen, cool rooms, etc. Jake would offer to help but always left after 20 minutes saying he has to make a sale. Jill often worked well into the night. After all, this was her dream. I'd take some furniture home to restore after hours and return it once restored. Business opened up after 6 months, and thanks to Dad, opened under budget. Jill managed the business and ran the kitchen. I worked where I was needed. In the kitchen, on the bar, tending to maintenance. I was on salary, second in charge, and could work in any position. Things went smoothly for a year. Business was turning a profit. Dad was getting his weekly beer and steak. Karen seemed happy. Jake was still working as a sales rep for a pharmaceutical company. One day I felt crook at work, so I clocked off and went home early. Pulling into my driveway, with the exception of a turning gut, things felt normal. Jake's car was there, but he lived there, so I didn't think anything was wrong. As usual, I parked behind Jake. Important for later, when I opened the door I found Karen doing the reverse cowgirl with Jake on the couch. After seeing me, Jake grabbed his pants and ran out through the back door. Karen and I argued into the night. She tried blaming me, saying I'm never home, I'm spending too much time with Jill. We were keeping things professional. I was her employee. I went to bed and told her she can sleep in Jake's bed as she clearly finds it more comfortable. I called Jill and informed her of this as Jake was her boyfriend. She was upset as he cheated on her but admitted she suspected he was seeing someone else. Jill offered me a room at the motel until I figure out my next move. The next day I loaded my personal effects in the truck. Jake's car was still there as I had blocked it in. I told Karen she can keep the rental and the furniture. I said Karen I'd be back for my tools in a few hours and I would appreciate if she wasn't there. I went home that afternoon to load my tools into my truck. While I was grabbing something from under my workbench, I found a bag I wasn't familiar with. Upon closer inspection, I found in a large quantity little tablets. The way they were packed and hidden made me realize they were probably ecstasy. A thorough search of the house led to me finding 2 more bags and about $12,000 in cash. I put 2 and 2 together and realized that Jake's pharmaceutical sales job was code for drug dealer, and Jake probably traded pills to Karen for sex. I was beyond angry until I realized that I have all I need to get him back. The revenge. Jake's car still hadn't moved. I went inside and grabbed his spare keys, chucked on a pair of gloves that were in the garage. I put half the money and one bag of drugs in his boot and thought, hang on, this won't pass. I removed his spare tire from the wheel well and put the bag in there. The other 2 bags, I threw them down the storm drain in the laneway behind my house. As for the $6K cash, Jake did cost me a house full of furniture. Just saying. I sent a message to both Jake and Karen with a typical hurt script. I can't believe you did this. We were friends blah blah blah. I've left. I hope you two are happy together. I then made an anonymous tip to the local police and ATF about a man fitting Jake's description, loading what looks like drugs into the boot of a car that sounded Jake's car and provided a partial number plate number that matched Jake's car. It didn't take long for law enforcement to find the car and locate the drugs. What I wasn't counting on is Karen was driving the car at the time. She was later released when they found out she was driving the wrong car at the wrong time. A warrant went out for Jake's arrest. The icing on the cake. I found out later that not only was the police after Jake, his supplier was as well, as he lost a lot of product. Fast forward 3 months, I purchased a house. I was still working with Jill. Karen was pregnant with Jake's baby and he was on the run. I suspected she was keeping contact with Jake because she suddenly left the district when she was 8 months pregnant. 12 months after the incident, after a drunken night, Jill and I mixed business with pleasure and started dating. That was 10 years ago. We are married, have 2 children and just opened our 3rd business. Dad still gets his weekly steak and beer. I did hear a rumor that Jake and Karen wound up in Alaska but can't confirm this. I do feel a little bad about it now because Jake made it possible for me to date Jill and live a wonderful life. I do hope he is well. TLDR, best friend sleeps with my girlfriend friend. He now has police and drug gangs chasing him. Edit, my friend clarified why his dad did such a good deal for the electrical work. Apparently he had a large contract cancelled due to bankruptcy after the contract paid a sizable non-refundable deposit, which he uses for supplies. Basically he had the materials already on hand and a few weeks suddenly free up. A++ gentlemen. Before we get to the second story, please like the video if you enjoy it and press the red subscribe button to never miss another video. Thanks. Good luck with ice. Sorry it's a long story and very poorly written since it's something I never enjoyed doing. So this happened about 10-15 years ago. It's been a long time. It's the sweetest revenge. My backstory: I was born in the States but my family are immigrants. My dad worked his ass off to become a US citizen, working 3 jobs, riding a bike to work cause he couldn't afford a car. He and his dad saved all the money so they could get the rest of the family here. I say this because I understand the struggles immigrants face coming here. Starting a new life without any support. I would never do this to someone actually trying to better their life. This piece of shit though didn't deserve to be here. The story is about my best friend's boyfriend. He lived with her in her family's house, renting a room, driving her car to work and using her cell phone that her parents paid for. She was 19 at the time. I was about 21. I was working at a club with my boyfriend. I worked really late and I had 2 kids. I asked my best friend if she could come over and watch them while they slept. Basically just come hang out at my place. My son's was about 6-7 years old. The little one was less than a year old at the time. She asked if she could have PPL over, so she wasn't bored. I said sure, I don't mind. I asked that she just not throw any parties. We laughed as she agreed. Everything was fine when we got back. I thanked her and she left. Later that night I saw a cup with a cigarette butt in it. So I texted my friend and asked her if someone smoked in the house. I'm a smoker, but because my son is really little and the older one had asthma, I didn't smoke in the house. I went outside. The reply I received didn't make any sense. Reading, what kind is it? I said I don't know. In my mind I'm like, there were only 2 other PPL here. How could you not know if one of them smoked inside? She's not a smoker, so I knew it wasn't her. I started receiving more questions instead of a yes or no answer. The replies also didn't make much sense. It was broken English and stupid spelling mistakes. By this point I knew I wasn't talking to her. Instead it was her boyfriend. My best friend is white and he's Mexican. He was trying to fool me so I would tell him who she was here with. I never liked him. Not for any specific reason, he just rubbed me the wrong way from the beginning. They have been dating for about a year or two. By this point I knew he was a piece of shit. I really dislike him because F how he treated her. He was controlling and abusive. I didn't see her as much anymore because I had gotten into an argument with him at her house earlier that year. We all wanted to go out to a friend's place. He didn't. He said she couldn't go either. She wanted to but he said no. I told her we were leaving. It was really late but this arsehole made a big deal about it. He decided it was a good idea to wake her dad. So her dad would force her to stay home. This pissed me off because he has no respect. He lives in their home and he can't even let her dad sleep. Besides, she was an adult, not to mention her dad never cared if she was going anywhere with me. Her parents knew if she was with me she was safe. After that minor blow up, I decided not to be around him. I wouldn't be able to hide my contempt of him. This is why she didn't come over to watch my kids with him. I didn't understand why she stayed with him. Especially after she told me that he forced himself on her. I put up with him for my friend. I knew if I was around he wouldn't dare to mistreat her in front of me. Back to the texts. He's pretending to be her and I tell him I know it's him and talk shit. He then said he was going to come over, shoot up my house with my kids still inside. I basically laughed to myself. I didn't believe him. I replied with a threat to get him deported. I got in touch with a mutual friend of me and my best friend. She knew more about him. She told me he had a warrant out for his arrest. The cops had gone to pick him up one day, but they didn't find him. The family hid him. He hid next door. My best friend's neighbor was her grandma. I didn't know any of that. I also didn't know his full legal name. She gave me everything I needed. I told her what I was going to do and not to tell our friend. I called the cops, gave them his location. Everything they needed to know so they wouldn't miss him. They actually picked him up the same night. I then called ICE. He was put on ICE hold on. He couldn't get bailed out of jail now. Once in custody, the only way he was getting out was when he reached Mexico. I felt bad for my friend and their daughter. I knew she would probably never see him. But I believe I did her a favor. I ended up telling her what I did not long after. I didn't want her to find out through someone else and get even more upset with me. It's been so long since then. She never said she was mad about it. I'm sure she was though in the beginning. In the end I did her a favor. Her life has completely changed in a good way. Her daughter has a better father now. Someone who takes care of both of them. Dickhead lost everything he owned. Lost his girl, side chick, and was arrested and deported. He also lost any chance of having any real relationship with his daughter. I did hear that he came back but took about 10 years. Their daughter was less than a year old. She's about 13 now. I believe he's met her once since all this happened. He got to see the great life she has without him in her life. Thanks for watching. Please hit the bell icon along with subscribe button to never miss another video. Bye.